Next, we have to discuss finding trend values using moving average method. In this method of moving average, we have to calculate the trend values based upon a duration of time. This duration of time is known as periodicity of fluctuations. Based upon the fluctuations occurring on the data, we will be given a periodicity for computing the moving averages. It may be 3 year, 4 year, 5 year, etc. So, in finding these moving averages, these observations will be grouped according to this periodicity of fluctuations. For example, if that moving averages are to be calculated for a duration of 3 years, we will group the observations into group into bunches of 3 years. For example, if the data is starting from 1991 to 2003, and the question is to determine the moving averages of 3 years, the 91, 92, 93 will consist of the first bunch, and the second bunch we will delete the first year 1991 and copy the next year 1994. Therefore, the second bunch consists of 1992, 1993 and 94. In that manner, we will group the years, the time points, and also the corresponding observations into bunches of the duration of periodicity. Therefore, these are known as, and then calculate averages of these bunches. That is the first moving average, or the moving average of the bunch 1. Likewise, we calculate the moving averages of each bunch. For example, if the periodicity of fluctuation is 5 years and A, B, C, D, E are the observations corresponding to the first 5 time points, then the moving average of the first bunch will be A plus B plus C plus D plus E by 5. And this moving average has to be placed corresponding to some year. And in the case of the odd number of in the case of the periodicity is an odd number, we can place this moving average to a unique middle year, and that will be the most middle year of that bunch. In the above example, that is of 91, 92, 93, the case of 3 year moving average, 92 will be the middle of that bunch. Therefore, the moving average has to be placed to this middle of that bunch. Thus, all the moving averages has to be corresponding middle year of that bunch. And this is possible if the periodicity is an odd number. So what happens to the periodicity an even number? In that case, we have to calculate the moving averages in two phases. In the first phase, we will be getting non-centered moving averages. The non-centered moving averages means there won't be a year representing that average. For example, if the periodicity is 4 years and the time points are starting from 1991, the first bunch will consist of 91, 92, 93 and 94. Suppose the average is A plus B plus C plus D by 4. So the first bunch average is A plus B plus C plus D by 4, and this is to be placed corresponding to some year. But there is no unique year in the middle place for the bunch 91 to 94. Therefore, that average is known as a non-centered average, and that non-centered average has to be placed in between the two middle years of that bunch, that is 92 and 93. So in the first phase, we will calculate all the non-centered moving averages. So 91 to 94, the mean has to be placed in between 92 and 93. In the second bunch, starting from 1992 to 1995, that non-centered moving average has to be placed in between 93 and 94. In that manner, calculate all the non-centered moving averages. After that, the trend values are to be calculated using centered moving averages. So what is a centered moving averages? The centered moving averages is the average of non-centered moving average. In this case, in the case we discussed earlier, so the first non-standard moving average has been placed in between 92 and 93, and the second non-standard moving average has been placed in between 93 and 94. Now, in between these two non-standard average, there is a unique year, that is 93. Therefore, average of these two non-standard averages has to be placed in between these two non-standard averages unique year, which is 1993. Thus, in the second phase, we will calculate all the centered moving averages from the non-centered moving averages, and they are to be placed in between the year coming in the consecutive bunches. And that's how we get trend values in the case of a non-centered, in the case of an even number of periodicity. So we shall discuss one example of the same computing trend values using measures using method of moving average. So I shall take this sheet of questions. Yes, this is the first example, that is question number 6. The first question, to find trend values using method of moving average, and it is 3-year moving average. This is what I told about the periodicity with respect to which we have to calculate the moving averages. So find the trend values to the following data relating to the profit of a company using 3-year moving averages. So when we come to the answer of this question, I have rewritten the question here. First of all, we are writing the data in column wise, that is starting from 1996 to 2011. Then we divide this data into bunches of 3 years, because this periodicity is to be determined for a duration. The moving averages are to be determined uh, for a duration of 3 years periodicity. That's why we divide the set of time points into bunches of 3 years. So the 96, 97, 98 will consist of the first bunch, and then its average, that is the sum of 22, 33, 28 divided by 3, that is 26.667. This is to be placed corresponding to middle year of that bunch. So if 96, 97, 98 are the uh, 3 years of that first bunch, the average has to be placed corresponding to 1997. And since here the periodicity is an odd number, in that bunch we can obtain a unique middle year, which is 1997. In the case of even the year of periodicity, there won't be a unique year for that bunch. As a case 1996 to 99, there is no unique year in that bunch, and that case will be discussed in the next question. Here the periodicity is 3 years, therefore the first bunch there is a unique middle year, and that average has been placed corresponding to that middle year 1997. When you come to the second bunch, you will delete the time point 1996 and the 22 its observation, and copt the next time point, that is 1999 and 22. Therefore, the second bunch will consist of 33, 28 and 22. 33, 28, 22 sum divided by 3, that is 27.667. And this has to be placed corresponding to middle of the second bunch. Middle year of the second bunch is 1998. We proceed this method successively. So in each case, we have to delete the first year of the bunch and add the next year to that bunch. That's how we calculate or we form the bunches for finding moving averages. And we can also see that there won't be no moving average for the first year and the last year when the periodicity is 3 years. Likewise, if the periodicity is 5 years, there won't be no moving average for the first 2 years and the last 2 years, because when the bunch of 5 years formed, then 96, 97, 98, 99, 2000. The middle will be 98. So there won't be no moving average for 96 and 97. Likewise, in the bottom, if this is the last bunch consisting of years 7 to 11, that average has to be placed corresponding to 2009. Therefore, there won't be no moving average corresponding to 2010 and 2011. This is the way we calculate the trend values using method of moving average. After plotting, after getting these moving trend values, you can also plot these trend values in a XY plane. There you have to take 97, 98, etc. 2010 in an XY plane, and corresponding to these years, we plot the averages or the trend values 27.667, 27.677, etc. And like the graphical method, we join them using line segments, and thereafter draw a line intersecting all these time points, all these line segments. This is the way we calculate trend values using method of moving average. So the next question, we have moving average for a period of 4 years. Here we can see that the periodicity is an even number. In that case, we have two phases for calculating trend values using method of moving average. The first phase we will calculate non-centered moving average, and the second phase only we come to the final trend value, which are the centered 4-year moving average. First phase we calculate the non-centered moving average by grouping the observations into bunches of 4 years. Therefore, here the first bunch will consist of 1990, 1991, 1992, 1993, and its average is 27. So where to correspond this 27? You can see that there is no middle year, unique middle year in between in this bunch of 1990 to 93. So the non-centered moving average has to be placed in between the two middle years. So that will appear in the middle of the middle years, that is 1991 and 92 middle, and that's why it is known as non-centered. It is not centered because there is no year corresponding to unique year corresponding to this value 27. In that manner, we calculate the non-centered moving averages in the first phase. Again, for the second bunch, starting from 1991 to 1994, 1991 to 94, the average will be sum of 25, 28, 32, and 20, which is 26.25. This is placed in between 92 and 93. That is the middle of the bunch starting from 91 to 94. Now we come to the last bunch. It is 10, that is 14, 12, 9, and 10. And this average has to be placed in between the middle point of the middle years of the last bunch. The last bunch is 2001 to 2004. The middle years are 2002 and 2003, and this non-centered average is placed in between middle of these middle years. That completes the first phase of finding non-centered moving averages. After that, for finding centered moving averages, we calculate average of these non-centered averages, that is 27 and 26.25, and that is to be placed in between the year, common year in between the non-centered average. Here 1992 is the common year for the first bunch and the second bunch. Therefore, this average should correspond to that 1992. That way, we calculate the second centered moving average, which is the mean of 26.25 and 23, that is 24.625, and that should appear corresponding to this middle of or the common year of the two bunches, which is 93. That way we calculate all the centered moving averages, and these are the trend values. Here also we note that there will be no moving average or no trend value for these first 2 years and the last 2 years, since the periodicity is since the periodicity of moving average is 4 years. That's how we get the non-centered moving averages or the trend values when the periodicity is an even number. So these are the two cases for finding moving average, trend values using method of moving average. There is one more example to find the trend values using method of moving average. In that case, it is 5-year moving average, and there we have to group the observations into bunches of 5 years. That is data is starting from 1990 to 1999. So the first batch consists of 90, 90, 90, 91, 1992, 1993. That is that 1994. That is the first bunch. And last bunch will be 95 to 99. And since the number of years in the periodicity is an odd number, we have unique years in all these cases. This problem, in question, you can complete yourself. So that's about the method of the examples of finding trend values using method of moving average. Thank you.